Hello everyone, this is Justin Morales, the real king of cinema. I am here remotely with filmmaker Jim VanBebber, known for his work, Deadbeat at Dawn, the Manson Family, some of the most incredible heavy metal music videos I've ever seen. How are you doing, Jim?
Doing good.
That's great to hear. So, in preparation for this, I watched the Blu-ray for both Deadbeat at Dawn, Manson Family. I know you can't see it, but I actually have both displayed on the table right now towards the camera. I listened to the audio commentaries. They're both very informative and entertaining. And, I learned a lot about you. And I just, but definitely a lot of questions were answered, but also brought up a lot of questions. I would like to get into that. So, you're a native of Ohio. You went to Wright State, right? And that's in Dayton.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. And that's where Deadbeat at Dawn was shot, along with some locations in Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Very cool. And
Primarily Dayton.
And you had dropped out, is that correct?
Yeah. I did 2 years at Wright State University. The first year was Super 8. And Sound Super 8. And, I was almost ready to look for another university to study film at, because what was coming next in their film study program, their motion picture, they called it motion picture production, but it was really geared more towards film theory. The head of the department were kind of like failed filmmakers, and so they wanted to turn everybody into film theorists, film critics. But then all of a sudden, a couple of real filmmakers joined the program, the department, and that was Jim Klein and Julia Reichert, and they were documentarians, and they had a body of work, and they knew 16 millimeter, and so I went back for year 2 to learn 16 millimeter, and once I did, I had squeezed everything out of college that I wanted out of it. I mean, when you're a filmmaker, what matters is your film to show, not a degree, and certainly producers aren't impressed by a motion picture degree from Wright State University in Ohio. So, third year I took out a college loan, and I bought a bunch of 7240 reversal film and embarked on Deadbeat at Dawn.
Yeah. That was a reversal video news film, right? I actually wrote that in my notes while I was from the audio commentary. Yeah,
that's what they used to shoot news with back in the day before they started shooting everything on videotape.
Yeah.
It's got a certain look. I had read somewhere that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was shot on
Ektachrome.
I was under the impression it was VNF 7240, which is why I bought a bunch of that shit. It could have been ECO. You say Ektachrome.
Okay. If I remember correctly, on the back of the DVD, it said it was they scanned it from the original ECO rolls. I assume that was Ektachrome. I apologize if I'm incorrect. But you've been doing this longer than me. You would know. So, if anyone watching this could confirm
that old look, that ECO or VNF 7240 has a certain color palette that newer film stocks didn't have, and I wanted to make Deadbeat deliberately look like something from the early 70s, and I wanted it. I mean, it was meant to, be blown up and shown at drive-ins, but by the time we finished it, the drive-in market kind of like dried up, you know, as we were shooting. So, you know, the new frontier was VHS, you know.
Yes.
So there we went that way.
Yeah. Yeah, my understanding was it initially premiered in Ohio, right, in Dayton, and then it just
showed theatrically in Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus, and I think it had a couple of screenings at the time in Chicago. But it never got a real theatrical release of any kind.
Okay, but it did have a few.
The prints were all 16 millimeter, you know, at that point.
Oh, okay. Okay, so were there any 35 blow-ups? It was just 16.
It was just 16. No 35 blow-ups have been made of Deadbeat.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to see that, but you know, it's like, where do you project them anymore?
Yeah, very sad. Actually, I was going to ask you about that. You're you know, you've been doing this for a while, and you're something of a film purist, if I remember correctly. Yes, and you've been sort of reluctant to move on to digital cinematography.
So kind of more adamant that it has no place in feature films. I mean, it works for me for documentaries, you know, maybe. Certain shorts, whatever, but I don't know. I think if you're going to make a feature film and you're going to put your best foot forward, nothing looks like film to me.
I agree.
And I'm just a stickler. I mean, maybe it's just, you know, because I'm a kid of the 70s, but, you know, I go to theaters, you know, since they started shooting on digital, and I feel disappointed. It looks darker than film. It's got it too clean in certain aspects. I hate it. I hate it myself. So when I see somebody actually shooting on film, I'll usually go see it, whether I care about the director or the story at all, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There seems to be something of a renaissance of shooting on analog formats, but it's mostly you know, I'm seeing it with like new Star Wars movies. I think what's his name, Black Swan.
Always.
Yeah, Tarantino, absolutely.
Chris Nolan, Darren Aronofsky.
Yes.
There's a handful of people who feel like I do, and you know, just don't want to gyp their film, you know. And it's amazing to me, you know, that people will spend all, you know, their budget on cast, on locations, on effects, and then they cheap out on the actual medium that they're shooting on. You know, I mean, film is only slightly, if you're smart about it, it's only slightly more expensive than shooting on a high-end digital camera.
Yeah. And there are actually a couple of resources where they're trying to make it affordable, at least for you know, Super 8 60 millimeter. One company that's out there in California, Pro8, I've purchased film from. There's also the Film Photography Project. They're trying to bring back regular 8 millimeter. Were you familiar with that at all?
Oh yeah, no. We're using a Pro8 Vision stock on a Sideshow of Souls, what I'm currently shooting.
Very cool.
I've been with Pro8 since the late 90s. You know, we shot the Necrophagia long-form video through Eyes of the Dead, primarily on you know, their Vision stock, and I used it on King and Storm, and you know, when the budget for 16 or 35 isn't there, to me, Pro8's the only way to go, you know.
Yeah.
And shoot their, you know, Vision stock, which is a negative, and you know, you get a lot of latitude in the transfer, and it's got that film look. And shot right, it can almost look like 16 millimeter, you know.
Yeah, the vision stocks have definitely gotten a lot better, finer grains. It's been a while since I've shot any of my work on a celluloid since probably I was in film school, but I've got a Super 8 camera. I shoot little home movies with my younger sister with it. She has a blast with it. Hopefully for the next project, I would definitely like to shoot on a film stock again, because like you said, there's just nothing like it.
Yeah, and today, you know, given what filmmakers are working with, if you shoot on film, you kind of stand apart. You know, that's weird, but for me, because, you know, everybody used to shoot on film when I started, but now it's like it gives you an edge of distinction or something. It certainly puts you apart from the crowd. Yeah,
I agree. I strongly agree. And even your short film, I think it's the latest thing I've seen from you was Gator Green. That was shot in 16 millimeter, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Regular 16 Super or?
No, that was regular 16.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that was we you know, shot what we shot, trying to you know, as sort of a what they call nowadays proof of concept.
Yeah.
Just to show people what we could do. And so, I mean, there's a feature script for Gator Green that I love. And what I did was literally go to the middle of the script and grab, like, from page, I can't remember the page to page, but we shot a section of the script. I realize now it probably would have been smarter to make like a fake trailer. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I was like, look, if, you know, we get the money to shoot the rest of this fairly fast, I can use what we've already shot and just plug that into the middle of the film and save money. So whatever. You know, that was the reasoning behind what is now Gator Green.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. We couldn't find the funding, so
yeah.
Things.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
It's been a bunch of stops and starts on different projects that way. You know, you get enough interest to get the budget to shoot some of it, and then everything goes cold. So you lick your wounds and move on to the next project, and always keep it in, you know, your back of your head is something you'd like to do if you know, you find the ways and means in the future.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Are there any? It's been a while since that came out. Are there any? Has there been any updates in regards to possibly finally being able to shoot that as a feature, or is that still kind of up in the air?
Up in the air.
Okay.
And, you know, we've lost a couple of cast members, and so, I mean, if I did it, you know, full-blown new nowadays, I wouldn't be able to use any of that footage. So it'd have to be, you know, a whole new shoot. But I got to tell you, I'm jazzed on the idea of working with real alligators. I think that's... It's far more threatening and far more scarier than, like, you know, over the summer I saw Crawl. That
was good.
Film that Raimi produced.
Yeah, that was good.
Director, yeah. And I thought that was pitiful, those CGI alligators.
Oh, you didn't like it?
I hated it. I thought it was terrible.
Yeah.
I thought it was insulting. It was like...
well, I definitely like Gator Green better. But
I'm no fan of CGI being used to create living, breathing entities on film, whether it's a creature, whether it's an animal, or whether it's Spider-Man or what have you. It's like I would rather see that go to a real animal, a stop-motion puppet, or a stuntman, you know.
Yeah.
That reminds me... CGI to me only works when it's recreating inanimate objects. You know, like buildings or whatever. Yeah. Then it seems to work. It fools me. But whenever they try and make a living thing for the screen, for the story out of CGI, they're not there yet, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Tobe Hooper's Eaten Alive?
Oh yeah, huge fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
That's
great. What is it? Was it an alligator or a crocodile? They seem to kind of...
It's a croc.
It's a croc. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that was it was definitely very well done.
There's a whole Neville Brand explanation in that film. He's like, "That's no alligator. That's a croc."
Croc.
Yeah.
And, and crocodiles, for the record, are a lot more man-eaters. They're more... they attack human beings way more than alligators. Not that alligators don't attack and eat human beings. They do. But crocodiles are way more feisty.
Wow. That must have been pretty scary though. How close were you to the alligators themselves in Gator Green?
Oh, inches, you know.
Oh God.
There's plenty of outtakes of me running away, you know, out of frame, scared, you know, screaming bloody murder. Because they're unpredictable. I mean, they're big reptiles, and they've got the brain the size of a pea. And, you know, they may look docile, and you're up on them, and then all of a sudden they jerk and thrash that tail. And yeah, so it was dicey, but total adrenaline, that's for sure.
Yeah, must have been fun.
Well, I knew it would be like any stunt, and I've done some crazy stunts.
Oh, yeah.
Try and make it as safe as you can for yourself, and you know that it's worth doing because you're filming it, and it's going to be a knockout scene, you know, and people will know that it's for real. It's not CGI, it's not faked, it's not matted in. Mm-hmm. It's all just, you know, you, the alligator, and the camera, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we appreciate you risking your life, Jackie Chan style, for our entertainment. You know, Gator Green was definitely a fun short, and please keep us updated if progress is ever made with that film, because it definitely leaves you wanting more.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to make the feature someday. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now was that your first project that was crowdfunded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably last.
Oh, okay.
Tried to raise money just to shoot one lousy scene for my script for a sequel to Deadbeat at Dawn, and that just fell on deaf ears. And it was kind of humiliating. And I'm like, okay, I thought there were a bunch of fans out here for Deadbeat, you know. Yeah. But I think, in retrospect, a lot of people were just like, there shouldn't be a sequel. Goose died, or appears to die, at the end of Deadbeat. And I've kind of grown to think the same way. It's like doing, although I really think there's a lot more that I could do, and it'd have a whole twist of, you know, the older guy doing this stuff, it's probably not a good idea. You know, just leave that film alone, let Goose die at the end of Deadbeat, and, you know, put my fight scene stuff into another film, you know.
I feel
a different film, a different subject.
Yeah. I was going to, because you mentioned Day of the Deadbeat a couple of times during the audio commentary, it kind of got me excited. I'm very sorry to hear that that kind of fell through. I would have definitely contributed to that. So I'm very sorry to hear, Jim.
Well, you know, if somebody hears you know, this interview and they're have connections to you know, put up a substantial budget, I would probably, you know, pursue it. So it's just like anything. It's about can you get the funding for it, you know?
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask you that. You've been doing this for quite some time. Would you say it's easier now or back when you started early in the 80s to get funding for your film as an independent filmmaker?
I think it was easier back then. probably because I had youth on my side. And so people would look at this young kid and see what I had done to this point and would think, oh, well, maybe he's going to turn into Tarantino, or maybe he's going to be, you know, Darren Aronofsky or something. Now, you know, when you're in your 50s and, okay, you know, Deadbeat was a moderate success. Manson was, you know, successful, but not the kind of numbers that are going to astound an investor. You know, I mean, you know, when you go after investors, put together a prospectus and you cite other films, independent films that have made incredible amounts of money, you know, like Texas Chainsaw or Evil Dead. But, you know, nowadays people go, well, how much money did your films make? You know, and so it's less attractive to them, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, you got to keep trying. I mean, what the hell else am I going to do? You know, at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've actually had some difficulty in the past also with funding. Now you said for Charlie's Family, the reason it took so long was it primarily a money issue, or?
Oh yeah, totally, all the way.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think
started out with a big, you know, key investment. But that only got like half the film shot. And then for years and years, it was just raising little bits of money to finally get the whole thing in the can. And then once you have it all in the can and it's a cut work print, and, you know, you make a transfer of that and you show people and it's a, you know, it's basically a rough cut, you still are looking for the funding for the sound mix, for the blow up, for the printing, you know, a bunch of expenses. And that's where David Gregory and Carl Daff finally came, you know, in and finished the film, you know, and they did it the right way, you know. Because I held out, I had several offers, you know, to just finish it cheap to DVD and not make any prints, not blow it up, no 5.1 surround mix. And, you know, I stood my ground because I believed in the film.
Yeah, I definitely think the film benefited from the extra time. It's a masterpiece. It's for anyone who hasn't seen it, Jim did this before Tarantino with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you know, this is the true story of the horrific crimes of Charles Manson and the Manson family. Now, I bring up the Tarantino film. You were actually a fan of this, right? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. It's my favorite Tarantino film. I got to tell you, the first time I saw it, I was on pins and needles because I didn't know what he was going to do with the Manson family. You know, and I was enjoying this ride of Cliff Booth and Rick Dalton, and I was like, where is this headed, you know? And he skillfully makes you think that it's going to end up in Sharon Tate's house. But, of course, then he does the switcheroo, and I let out a big sigh of relief. And, you know, my girl, Missy, really loved the film, and we ended up seeing it like, I don't know, 10 times in the theater, or 9 times? Yeah. 9 times, yeah.
Did you see it projected on 35 millimeter or 70?
I did, not 70, but one of the screenings. Caught it in a whole bunch of different cinemas, and but one of them was at the Wexner Center in Columbus, Ohio, and they screened a 35 print.
Yeah,
and it looked, you know, of course, better.
Yeah, definitely fit with the time period that set, of course, as well. You know,
but you know, I was just relieved that Tarantino was using the Manson family primarily as a joke. You know, and I mean, he obviously didn't care. I mean, the killers at the end were all Tex, Sadie, and Patty, and Leslie, or Linda.
Linda gets away.
Sadie and Tex. They were carrying the wrong kind of knives. You know, they were carrying what looked like kitchen knives and shit, not buck knives. And I was like, well, Tarantino doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, he's out to make fun of these fuckers. You know, and as a child of L.A., that's his prerogative. I'm sure, you know, he was offended at what the Manson family wrought upon Hollywood. And, you know, Hollywood was, you know, not exactly his hometown, but certainly his adopted hometown. So I could see what he was up to. He wanted to, you know, make Sharon Tate the star that she really never was. And he went, you know, it was a big, beautiful love letter to Hollywood in the late 60s. I loved it. You know, I really dug it. I thought he did a hell of a job.
Yeah. That's great. But yeah, I definitely felt like your film was obviously more historically accurate. It didn't have that revisionist fairy tale stylized ending. Your film was very rooted, you know, it has its surreal sequences, but it's very much rooted in a very brutal reality. Now, what were your primary sources? Because you said that you absolutely refused to speak to any of the Manson family members. Did anyone reach out to you that was involved? Did Polanski or Sharon Tate's family contact you, or Jay Sebring?
No, I was way too much off the radar when we were making it, and when we were making it, it was all, you know, pre-internet. So my research was getting a hold of every magazine that had an interview with, you know, like We Magazine, this, you know, men's magazine from the 70s, had an interview with Bobby Beausoleil.
Yeah, that's who you portrayed in the film.
Tex Watson wrote a book called Will You Die For Me? Paul Watson wrote a book entitled My Life with Charles Manson, which was very informative. You had The Family by Ed Sanders. Then, of course, Helter Skelter by Vince Bugliosi, but I reject his, you know, theory of the motive, you know, what he sold the jury, I think, was a bunch of horse pucky. You know, it's my conviction that they did the Tate and LaBianca murders to do copycat murders to get Bobby Beausoleil out of jail for Gary Hinman. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was portrayed.
Really, to this date, nobody's gone into the connection of Bobby Beausoleil into this whole thing, except for a very recent episodic docu-series that was on Epics or some shit. I don't know. I saw it over the summer. It's called Helter Skelter, An American Myth. And they really break it down. I gotta say, they did a fine job.
And there was now, since we're talking about the film, there was a burning question that has been on my mind since I watched it with the commentary. Now, during the crucifixion orgy scene, did I hear you correctly when you said that the cast actually started having unsimulated sex?
Yeah, that's true.
Holy shit!
The night got pretty crazy.
Yeah, it looked crazy.
It was an all-night shoot. We were in this field, and the whole thing was lit with two giant 10K lights that were up on scaffolding, and they, you know, lit up this, you know, huge like circle of red light. We put red gels on the 10Ks, and so you had this red circle and these two bonfires, and then the rest of it was all, you know, black. You could walk outside the circle of the light, and you were in nighttime darkness. And so, you know, I mean, a lot of people were on acid, and you know, everybody's naked. I guess some people just got pumped up and, you know, walked across into the darkness, and you just hear them going at it, you know.
That is awesome. Wow. Okay. That's really cool though. It's pretty wild. But yeah, that kind of
free-spirited shoot. I mean, you know, I'm not a big rule maker when it comes to as long as the cast can do their job and give me a good performance. I don't really care what substances they're on, or what they do. It's not a big hang up for me.
Yeah. That's crazy, but it was definitely, the intensity definitely showed. That's for damn sure. Wow. Okay. So so I did hear you correctly when I was watching that. That's wild. God, now I'm losing my train of thought. But I'm sure the film generated controversy. All your work kind of goes for that hard R rating and beyond. What's one of the biggest controversies that you faced with some of your work?
With audiences, I have no idea. I'm sure my approach turns off some people, but they've never reached out and told me about it. The only ones who've told me that I've gone too far are people I'm trying to get to distribute the film.
Yeah.
So, and it's amazing, because things are changing all the time. What was unacceptable in the 80s then became acceptable in the 90s and now is common day shit that you can watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
As far as like violent effects or what have you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's everyone's kind of desensitized nowadays.
Without a doubt. I mean,
for better or worse,
opened up. It's like there are no rules anymore. Really, I don't know. I guess there always are, but things are a lot more open as to what you can put on the screen and have it accepted by the mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think we've seen a lot of the rise in torture porn, which kind of goes above and beyond the gore effects in your older work. It's for better or for worse, everyone's kind of gotten used to that. But I'm sure Jim VanBebber can find a way to push the limits going forward.
That's not. I use violence when it serves the story. And for like Deadbeat at Dawn, it serves the genre. I mean, the genre of Deadbeat at Dawn is it's a martial arts film. It's a kung fu film. And that it primarily is about violence and fighting. So the more intense I could make that, it served the film. For Manson, I wanted to show the truth as graphically as possible. I didn't want it romanticized. I didn't want it fantasized about or not talked about. I wanted people to see the crimes. And Gator Green, again, is more of a genre piece, and that will get horrific, but I'm not out for making gore for gore's sake, which, there are some filmmakers, especially now, where it's like, well, it's the most brutal movie ever. It's the most extreme shit, the goriest effects you've ever seen. That kind of bores me, to tell you the truth.
I feel you.
I mean, unless you have a story that I'm engaged in, I want the effects to be in the back seat. I want the front seat, the driver, to be story character, and if there's a reason that things need to get really horrifyingly violent, then fine. I applaud it and then, go all the way. But to set out just to make a film based around gory makeup effects is like idiotic.
I agree. And I definitely think your films definitely have a deeper substance to it than the violence. The violence is just it's just a
part of the parcel.
Yeah.
It's not the main attraction. Not meant to be anyway.
Definitely. You've done pretty much your own stunts. Some of the most wild stunts outside of a Jackie Chan movie. Have you gotten some? Have you been seriously injured for any of your films doing this?
No, thankfully. You know, a couple of bruises, never any broken bones. During Deadbeat at Dawn, the worst injuries we had was Tom Burns, who played a gang member. He broke his thumb once. A couple guys, you know, had some serious bruising, but you know, for the most part, it's we've been lucky, I guess. We've been lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. That's great.
Nothing really, nothing terrible.
That's good. That's good.
Unlike Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
But I mean, that motherfucker, like, he made it like his business to outstunt himself from film to film, and, you know, it just suffered. God, horrifying injuries, you know.
Yeah.
I think he even has a plate in his head or something.
Does he? I know he has, like, he was the first person in history to break a particular part of his pelvis, I believe. It's insane. I think it might have been from Police Story when he does that crazy jump in the mall. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, you know. Oh, sorry, Jim, I lost you.
I just said I'm a Chan fan.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you mentioned your Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris being major influences on you. Now, kind of going back to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, what did you think about Bruce Lee's portrayal?
Oh, I thought it, you know, for the film, it was fine. I mean, the film's a fantasy. So, I mean, I didn't take it as like, oh, this is really how Bruce was every day on the Green Hornet set. Yeah. And I mean, you know, if you look at it, he doesn't even look like he did during the Green Hornet with the haircut. I mean, that looks like Enter the Dragon, Way of the Dragon era Bruce Lee, you know. I mean,
that's right.
And, you know, he was cocky, and he said several things like, you know, about him versus Ali that, I mean, he actually said that shit. So,
yeah,
you know, there was an arrogance about Bruce Lee. I just thought Tarantino found a way to make the audience understand that Cliff Booth, Brad Pitt's character, is an excellent fighter. And so Tarantino was like, this guy was a war veteran. He knows hand-to-hand combat. How can I show the audience that and serve my story that he's a stuntman working on television shows? And it was a brilliant way. It was like, okay, I'm going to have Bruce Lee pick a fight with him, you know, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, and it definitely makes it believable when he does that brutal beatdown on the Mansonites at the end.
You know, that there's a violence underneath the character of Cliff Booth, you know. Something that's there that's, you know, compelling him not only to make a living at risking his life, but he's, you know, he's got issues, you know, and he may or may not have killed his wife, for crying out loud, you know. So,
yeah.
A lot of good things going on in that movie,
yeah. But that actually, the one question I really wanted to ask you, in addition, the Manson Family, Charlie's Family, the Severin Blu-ray, which is great. I have it displayed right here. It's out of print. Are there any, do you know of any plans to possibly re-release that or something? Because it's going for like a lot of money on eBay.
I do believe that Severin plans on doing a re-release, or possibly they're going to sub-license it to another, maybe bigger company. But that's all just what I heard through the grapevine. I mean, at this point, Severin is in control of the Manson Family.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just curious about that. So
I think David's just letting time pass by, you know, and letting it be out of print like distributors do, so that there's a hunger to see, you know, a new re-release. That's my suspicion, anyway. You know.
Okay. Very cool. Okay, I was curious about that. The last two questions. So, after this crazy pandemic shit is over, what are the big plans for the future in your filmmaking career? What's something that we should all be looking out for?
Well, see, that's something I've learned not to say, because
I respect that.
I always, I put my foot in my mouth that way. I'm like, okay, this is coming next, and then it ends up being years. So I've certainly got lots of projects I would like to see realized. Right now I'm just concentrating on finishing Sideshow of Souls amidst this pandemic, and finally getting that finished and out. It may take another year. And then after that, I'll be pushing scripts that haven't found a home yet, like my Al Capone script, or Gator Green, or The Last Days of John Martin. God knows I've got lots of material that I could easily get to work on. So,
very, very cool.
It's just a matter of finding the right people, the right producers. I envy some of these independent directors who started out early with a strong producer, like Sam Raimi had Robert Tappert.
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino had Lawrence Merrick, or not Lawrence. What's his name? Fuck. The guy who produced his first 3-4 films.
Well, I know the first Reservoir. He had Harvey Keitel chip in. Weinsteins picked it up.
The producer, who was his producer, and then on Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown. Larry, what's his name? Yeah.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
I swear to God, remember. This guy keeps such a low profile. He let Quentin get all the accolades, but he's the guy who put it together.
Yeah.
And I've never had that. I've had a great cinematographer, Mike King, but who was never really much of a producer, and then I ended up, having to produce myself, and sometimes you can wear too many hats,
Yeah.
And it gets taxing. So anyway, I hope one of these days to find a producer who really wants to stand by my side, like Charles Schneer did for Ray Harryhausen.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like all of his freaking movies, So anyway, that's a wish of mine, but no, I just want to keep on making features on film until I can.
Yeah. Last question, and this is for a good friend of mine, a classmate of mine in film school. He's kind of been hit pretty hard with the pandemic. He ended up losing his job, had to move back in with his parents, and he kind of reached out and on social media and asked. He's like, "Is it normal to have an existential crisis as a creative person?" Now, you've your career has had a lot of hardships, financially,
Sure.
I'm sure physically and emotionally. Is there any sort of advice you'd have out there for other filmmakers who might have been hit really hard by this?
Yeah, sure. My advice is, if you really believe that this is your calling in life, and this is what you're meant to do, and you have something to offer the audience, don't ever forget it. And as tough as things get, you can get through them. Never let the pilot light go out. Keep that little flame, even when things get really dim, keep it burning, because the day will come where it'll burst back up into flames. If you keep at it, if you believe, if you're unflappable. And I know that's easy to say, harder to live, but damn it, you've got to stick with it. You have to stick by your guns. Maybe sometimes years go by and you don't see a way out, but if you're faithful and believe and keep trying, it seems like things do work out. So keep the faith is my advice.
I appreciate that. I think I needed to hear that as well. Thank you, Jim. So I've held you long enough. I'm going to let you go. Jim, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the fans will appreciate it as well.
All right. Well, good luck with your projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep in touch. All right. Have a good day, man.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Justin.
All right. See you later, Jim. Bye.
I can't help the way